Happy Valentine's Day, all my lovely beauties and beasts out there. And welcome to Beauties and Beasts, a podcast for all things Beauty and the Beast. And I am DF. And because it is the month of love, we are joined today by a real-life married couple. You may know them from the Brony fandom, specifically my past series, Daughter of Discord, DaWillstanator and Midnight Sonata, a.k.a. William and Katie Patterson.
Who are these people?
I have no idea.
Why would she bring these people onto her podcast? Oh my gosh.
They sound like real hacks.
Hi.
Hello.
Yeah, you guys want to tell a little bit about yourselves for, some random viewers who may not know who you are?
All right. Online, I go by DaWillstanator, otherwise known as Thespio. I produce comic dubs, occasional fanfic readings. I do audio editing for a few animated series that I'm in online. And I'm also a recurring background actor in a few things that are shot in Los Angeles. Like I was on a few shows like Veep, Black Monday, and a bunch of other things that I can't really name off the top of my head. Otherwise, we'd be here forever. But yeah, I'm working on becoming a professional actor in the business, be it either in front of the camera, on stage, or behind the mic. And yeah, other than that, I'm a loony.
And you do have a really good voice.
Really? I'm Katie Patterson, a.k.a. Midnight Sonata, if you're into the Brony fandom. I am an actor and a writer and a producer. I've done quite a few voiceover stuff, not only for DF, but for DaWillstanator here as well. And it's actually how we met. Thank you, DF, for being the ultimate matchmaker. And I have to do it. I have to do this. Matchmaker, matchmaker, make me a match.
I don't do it on purpose, just to be clear.
Yeah, I don't think she's mentioned that, but she's a singer too.
Yes,
so.
I do covers on my YouTube channel.
Well, technically both of us are singers.
Yeah.
We did a lot of musical theater growing up. And
yeah.
Stuff like that.
I do covers on my YouTube channel, and I'm currently writing my first horror short film that it's almost finished in the writing stages, and then we will be going into the crowdfunding stages and pre-production.
Oh, that's cool.
Yay. It's as a producer, it's heck on wheels. I don't know if I can say the other word, but I'll say heck because I can get away with saying heck.
Heck.
Sounds like you've got something in your throat, dear. As you can tell, we're a bunch of characters.
Yeah, we're pretty out there, and as I've stated before, we're loonies.
Loony.
Yeah, it seems like only yesterday where I hired them on to do my Little Pony voice acting project, Daughter of Discord. I had no idea this was going to happen, just to be clear.
Neither did we, honestly.
My little babies are all grown up, which is kind of weird considering I'm actually younger than you guys.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's...
Apparently I'm a matchmaker, though. Apparently a lot of my voice actors end up, dating each other for a short while, and...
or in this case, get married.
Yeah, in this case, you guys definitely made it.
Woo! We made it! We made it to the other side!
Yeah, so if only I could find a match for myself. That's the only thing I can't do.
You'll find it.
I'm sure you'll find something.
Yeah, maybe.
My rule for you and for everybody else, because this is the rule I followed when I started dating Will, is find somebody who's on your level of insanity.
Yeah, I can attest to that. I've dated a few other girls in my lifetime, and yeah, a few of them were able to sort of match my level of craziness, but at the same time back then I was pretty subdued about it. But now, having met her,
I'm the best.
She's kind of, allowed me to open up and roam free a lot more than I was used to back then. Because contrary to popular belief, I can be a shy little boy sometimes. I'm not afraid to admit that.
It's hard to believe when you're doing those insane Discord/Joker impressions.
Oh, God.
Well, I mean, in a sense, voice acting it's like my own personal playground. I'm allowed to go all out as much as I want without much consequences. And of course, as long as it serves purpose to the story.
Yeah,
and
of course.
All that. So yeah, it's a form of escapism for me, and I really do enjoy that. And I would love more than anything to make a career out of it.
Yeah, I think both of us would. I think all of us want to make a career either as writer, actor, singer, producer, whatever. I think all of us.
It reminds me of one of my major inspirations in life, Rob Paulson. Would say, for those who don't know, he's the voice of Yakko Warner and Pinky. From Pinky and the Brain and Animaniacs and a bunch of other stuff. A favorite line of his that he always likes to say is, I basically get paid to do what would get me in trouble in 7th grade.
Yeah.
That is so true, especially if you've watched Animaniacs.
Oh my god.
Exactly. So
yeah, and it's available on Hulu, so if you have not seen Animaniacs, I feel sorry for you, and I ask that you stop this recording.
What kind of rock have you
been
living in throughout the whole 90s era?
Well, there might be some kids who were not born in the 90s,
well,
and so
they're
they
actually
need to go
making a
educate
reboot.
themselves.
They have the internet?
Yeah, they're actually making a reboot that's coming out in 2020 with a lot of the original voice actors. So,
oh, thank God! Thank God!
I've heard about that. I'm pretty stoked.
Yeah, if they can
they got
capture
Rob
the
Paulson,
same essence, it's got some good.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, so I take it the marriage is going well so far, by the sounds of it.
No, it's horrible. We're already planning the divorce tomorrow.
Oh my goodness.
Oh no! Can I have some high hopes for you guys?
Kidding.
Nah,
I know you're kidding.
This is just our style of humor. Get used to it.
Yeah, I know you're kidding. There's going on with that.
Granted, you've been working with her for like close to 4 years, and I was like 3 years, because you have an extra year on me from Bride of Discord.
Yes, that is true.
It was more like 8 months, I'd say. An 8 months difference.
I'm rounding up.
Yeah. I have worked with DF for Bride of Discord, which is the first story to come up before the sequel, Daughter of Discord, because I was brought in to replace the original Discord, who had been recording for the first 9 parts, but then he dropped out for, I'm sure he had a valid reason for doing so. And I auditioned to pick the role back up for the finale, and, the rest is history.
I still think it's so funny that Big Apple Pie actually showed up at the last panel that we did at BronyCon.
Yeah, this past BronyCon.
Well, he's my cousin, and he was actually, staying with us for a little while. I'm like, can I go to BronyCon with you guys this year? I'm like, oh yeah, sure.
Oh yeah, I keep forgetting he's your cousin. If you're watching this, hi, Big Apple Pie!
Hello!
That's not why I hired him in the first place, just to be clear. He just asked to audition. I'm like, okay, but you're going to have to audition like everyone else. I'm not going to hire you just because you're my cousin. And then he blew me away. And like, okay.
Fair enough,
It's not just favoritism here.
Yeah. So, but anyway,
Okay,
sadly, this is not talking about My Little Pony as much of you would like us to do. This is about something else.
Yeah, but before we get into that, just want to give a few announcements. So DaWillstanator and Katie are here at the request of my fairy godperson patron, Satu-Hana, as part of her patron rewards. And I'd like to thank my other patrons, Anime Guy 1101 and TyrannosaurusVenom, for their continuing support. And some more announcements on the patron rewards. Beastly Reads, my mini-series for monthly book reviews, spoiler-free, are now available for $5 plus patrons. If you are a patron now, be sure to check out the latest episode, my review on the book by Neil Gaiman, Coraline. And if you'd like to help fund the podcast or help me to raise money to recover all my lost data from my broken external hard drive, which has the majority of my YouTube stuff and really old pictures on there, including a heck of a lot of Bride of Discord stuff, just so you know. Become a patron today. You can earn rewards such as access to episode previews, early episode access, complimentary gifts, personal thank you messages from me. Get to listen to recordings live. Just click the green button on the right-hand corner of the screen or follow the link in the description below if you're listening on YouTube. And another way to help fund the podcast is to check out my merchandise on Redbubble, from t-shirts to notebooks to mugs, etc., etc. All these will help. And also, we've been talking a little bit about voice acting, directing, and writing. Be sure to check out my last episode, which was an interview with independent film director Ann Wells. We talk about her film An Accidental Zombie Named Ted, and we also gave some tips on directing and writing. Okay, so I realize we're about 10 minutes into this episode, and we've yet to actually say what the episode is about.
Yeah, sorry about that. We tend to riff.
No.
Tangents, everywhere is tangents.
So yeah, when we decided we were going to do an episode, we had, I had like all of these different topic ideas, and we had to think about what we were going to talk about. And we all agreed on something that I really think is a multi-person topic, because there are so many different versions out there, is one of the most popular romantic fairy tales, which is appropriate for Valentine's Day, Cinderella. Ooh. Now, I know what you might be thinking. This isn't Beauty and the Beast. Or is it? So yeah, so there are so many versions of Cinderella out there, but, we will talk about, like, the main ones and maybe also a few personal favorites.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, for starters, let's talk about the origins of Cinderella. I mean, everyone kind of knows how it goes, with the glass slipper and the pumpkin, the fairy godmother.
Yep.
Girl is oppressed by her stepmother and stepsisters.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, the version we know today, what I just described there, was written in French by Charles Perrault in 1697.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, this is the version that's adapted the most. But there's actually another traditional version, which is kind of less popular, though it was kind of used for the musical Into the Woods. I don't know if you saw the musical or saw the recent movie. You know what I'm talking about?
Oh yeah, I have the stage version with Bernadette Peters as the witch on DVD, and so I
saw that. Yeah,
it's so good. I love it.
Yeah, I'm aware of Into the Woods. I haven't really submersed myself in it fully, but I do. I acknowledge that it's out there, and from what I hear, it is pretty good. And yeah, I believe.
Don't worry, I'm gonna educate him tonight.
But yeah, I have heard that there was a lot of connections to Cinderella, be it either as like sort of like its own sort of version or like a spin-off of sorts.
It's different connections between several different fairy tales. In a way, it's the Once Upon a Time before Once Upon a Time.
Right. Yeah, I think that's what I've heard.
I know what you mean by
that. Because they've got Little Red Riding Hood, they got Jack and the Beanstalk, Cinderella, of course, Rapunzel.
Isn't like Hansel and Gretel one of them too?
No, Hansel and Gretel's not in this.
Not in that one.
But it probably should have been. They do make a very minor reference for Snow White and for Sleeping Beauty as well towards the end. The harder to wake, the better to have.
Yeah, so that version of Cinderella stems more from the Grimm brothers version, which was written in 1857, and this was written in German. And this is a lot darker and really not as popular. When people go adapting Cinderella, they don't really turn to this one as much.
Well,
okay,
severing off bits of your feet so you can wear a shoe. I mean,
I was going to get into that, yes.
Well, yeah, I would imagine so. And plus, too, I mean, it's like, not to seem, biased or any sort of or anything like that. It's written by Germans. It's kind of guaranteed to be dark by default.
Well, actually,
the Grimm brothers are called Grimm brothers for a reason.
Yeah,
okay,
exactly. Hello.
I've never figured this out. Does anybody know what was the name? The Grimm brothers, was Grimm an actual word before they became fairy tale writers, or did they just take that name? I have no idea.
That actually would be great research. But a reason why a lot of the Grimm fairy tales were a lot darker there were two reasons for them. One, they were supposed to be like darker fables. They were supposed to have stories that taught a lesson. And then also they were bar stories. They were stories that you would tell at a bar, not something you would read to your children.
Right.
So
yeah.
How they got adapted as children's stories, if you're going from the Grimm point of view, it's beyond me, because it's extremely dark.
They're a way to, scare children into behaving.
Yeah.
You could say.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I wanted to point out the key differences between Charles Perrault's Cinderella with the pumpkin and the glass slippers and the Grimm brothers version. You already pointed out that the stepsisters actually cut off their toes and heels so their feet could fit the shoes. Yep. But also in this one, the dad is still alive through all of this.
Oh, yeah. There have been some interpretations where the dad is still alive. And
I've been wondering about that. Like, we see all these interpretations. They focus on the stepmother and stepsisters. I'm like, what about Cinderella's biological parents?
Well, we all know the mom's dead because Disney.
And then the dad dies, and
in the Disney,
I think in Perrault's version, he was dead too.
The dad does die. I think he gets sick. But there have been versions where the dad still lives. For instance, Confessions of an Ugly
Stepsister. Or he's like on a trip or something. Yeah.
Yeah, Confessions of an Ugly Stepsister. He's still alive, and I think he lives throughout the entire movie.
Yeah, and actually, in the Grimm's tale, he doesn't do anything about the abuse. Like, he even he even refers to, towards the end, like, oh, the only other girl in this house is the kitchen wench left by my late wife, but it couldn't possibly be her. I'm like, what kind of dad are you? Jeez.
Well, it could be a number of reasons why he would act that way. One is, of course, mourning the loss of his first wife, and probably looking at her probably reminds him of his first wife, and it hurts. And so to refer to as a kitchen wench probably helps lessen the pain. The second reason I would probably think is manipulation from the stepmother's part, because from all the fairy tale variations that we've seen from Cinderella, whether you know her as Lady Tremaine or you know her as just the evil stepmother, she has always been a very manipulative person. She's definitely somebody who could... I'm assuming from what I can see, she's someone who could easily turn the man's head in any direction that she wants. And so it could be a mixture of those two factors as to why, at least in the Grimm version, why he would refer to Cinderella only as the kitchen wench.
You know what's funny? When I think about it, Lady Tremaine or the evil stepmother, whatever name she decides to go by, in a sense, she is a lot more of a subdued version of the Queen of Hearts from Alice in Wonderland. She always wants things her way and nothing else. And she will do whatever it takes to make sure that happens. Even being the most despicable woman imaginable. Like, she's more subdued than the Queen of Hearts, but she is, like, the deeds she does are just a lot more sick.
Granted, subdued is probably, like, that's taken with a grain of salt, because if you look at, even in the Disney version, where she just lets her daughters go at Cinderella's dress, and then it's just like, girls, we mustn't lose our tempers. That's some definite, like, psychological, physical abuse right there.
She is, like, the pure definition of a sociopath.
Yeah, she is.
Yeah, and when you have the dad in there, it just goes to show that, the biological family can be, they have the capability to be just as nasty to their own children than, as a family that's not biologically related. So it's just sad, but it's true. Like, all these fairy tales kind of give us stepmothers and stepsisters a pretty bad name, but honestly, like, any member of the family can be capable of abuse, which is really awful, but it's true.
It is. It's awful. Once again, this goes to show with Grimm fairy tales what they were trying to do. They were telling stories to, one, scare people into being good, and two, just it's a darker version of Aesop fairy tales.
It's in a way spin-off stories of the Boogeyman.
No, I wouldn't say the boogeyman, because the boogeyman is more of something that...
Well, you know how,
it's like something that will live in your closet. It's a nightmare. It's like...
Well, you know how there's that one phrase, it's like, if you don't be good and get enough sleep tonight, the boogeyman will get you.
Well, yeah, there's that. But I don't think that really applies to the Cinderella story, because that's not a boogeyman. That's an actual person. That's somebody that's actually in somebody's life and wreaking havoc.
Not really relating to, like, the person, but more like the intent of what the story is trying to do to its audience.
Yeah, that I can get behind.
Yeah, that's what I mean. I'm sorry if that didn't come across as clear enough the first time I said it, but yeah, that's what I mean.
Okay.
So.
Okay, let's go back a bit. So there's also a scene in the Grimm's version where the dad goes to the fair, and this is actually similar to, are you familiar with, Beaumont's version of Beauty and the Beast? Where the dad goes off to town and asks the daughters what they want.
Yeah, he goes off to a fair or to a festival or something.
Yes.
Yeah, well, Cinderella's dad does the same thing, and the stepdaughters, ask for dresses and jewels, and Cindy asks for, this is actually pretty weird, she asks for him to break off the first branch, which knocks against his hat on the way home, which is actually the same, they did this for when they did the live-action remake for Disney.
Mm-hmm.
Get the branch, except in that version that he actually died, but still managed to get the branch. But but he did come back in the Grimm's version. So Cinderella takes the branch and plants it on her mother's grave, and she cries so much that branch grows into a mighty tree.
Oh, yes.
Aww.
Yes. So yeah, Katie, you know Into the Woods. That came from Grimm.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, but what's important about this tree is that this is actually what gives her the dress and the shoes. Not a fairy godmother, but like the spirit of her mother from the tree.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, wow.
And
I didn't know that.
Also, the slippers are not glass. Well, actually, they're kind of different every night. In this one, the festival or ball lasts 3 days rather than one. Mm-hmm. They're like silk and then silver, and on the final night, they're golden slippers. And, she dances with the prince on all the 3 nights, and on the 3rd night, the prince, he gets a bit clever, and he puts tar on the steps to prevent her from running away. Oh. And her shoe remains stuck.
Yep. That's how it's, because I remember Will was actually looking at some pictures of Cinderella, and I like the fact that he puts, like, tar, or is, they say in Into the Woods, he threw a pitch on the stairs. In one of the pictures that I saw he was looking up for Cinderella, it was, if her shoe fits perfectly, how did it fall off?
Yeah, I was actually wondering about that. Like, I was...
Well, she was probably just in a hurry. That's what I was thinking in the original, but...
Yeah.
And plus, too, I think, like, as a standard practice for shoes, it's like... Yeah, you want them to fit snugly, but not so snugly to where, like, it cuts off circulation.
That's true.
And you won't be able to put it on, take it off as frequently as you need to. You need to have at least a little bit of space to keep it loose enough so that way it's not like, it doesn't feel like a vice grip on your foot.
Yeah, I guess you got a point on that one.
I can kind of understand Grimm not going the whole glass slipper route, though.
Yeah.
Because I think they kind of got, she wouldn't be able to walk in those things.
Yeah, like as someone with a Y chromosome, I automatically don't see the appeal in heels. They look like the most uncomfortable things ever. But to have the addition of those same shoes being made of glass, something that is so fragile looking and could break and slice your foot at any given moment, whether you were careless or not. Cinderella's got mad respect for me for being able to stick with something that it looks like the most uncomfortable thing in the world to wear.
Fun fact,
Hey, even X chromosomes here. I don't like high heels. No, they are very uncomfortable without the glass.
Thank you. Someone understands. Someone gets it.
Fun fact, did you know that women weren't the first people to wear high heel shoes? They were actually worn by men, specifically butchers, who didn't want to get blood after they killed, like, sheep and cows and goats. They didn't want to get blood on the hems of their pants, so they would wear high heels to keep their pants off the ground.
I did not know that.
Same way that ballet was originally made for men, and women weren't actually allowed to dance ballet. Ironically,
same for Shakespeare. Shakespeare, it was all cast by men, and men had to pose as women had to pose as men playing women.
Oh right, yeah, I remember that. So, drag was sort of a thing before it became a thing.
I Okay, so we're getting a little off track here. When Cinderella, comes to get the shoe, try on the shoe, the prince doesn't recognize her until after the shoe fits. Like, he just, puts the shoe on, then looks up and finally recognizes his love. Like, okay, sure, fine.
Yeah, that in and of itself is a little weird. It's like, you can only recognize your one true love by just if a shoe fits, not like her facial features or her hair or anything like that. That always struck me as weird.
Another fun fact, there is one variation of Cinderella where the prince, or in this case, princess, says, I don't need him to try on the shoe. I know it's him. And funny enough, it was done by Sesame Street. It was Cinderelmo.
What?
Oh, yeah, I remember that. I loved I watched that, over and over. I kept renting it from the video store.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Yeah.
And so it was Cinderelmo.
That was a cute one, actually.
Even a show meant for toddlers and preschoolers could see the plot holes. That is awesome.
And actually, in Cinderelmo, at the ball, the stepmother does realize it's Cinderelmo, and drops her cloak on top of him. So, then he would be too flabbergasted, and people won't notice Cinderelmo.
But I love the end. I love the ending. I had to choose, and you were the best dancer. You want me to be married before kindergarten? Ha ha ha! Elmo's too young to get married.
Oh my god! I have to watch it now. I have to find this special and watch it now. Just.
It's cute. It's so adorable.
I still remember it's but the law says the princess has to be married. Well, you're the king. Can't you change the law?
Hello?
Oh, I can.
Oh boy.
Yeah, also the stepbrothers are actually not that mean. It
was Telly and Baby Bear.
Yeah, and and at the end, hey, you want to come over to the palace to play? Yeah. And then they look at the mom who's like, can we, mommy? What? My son's playing at the palace? Why, yes.
Oh, wow. Oh, my God. This sounds too adorable.
She actually turns out to be kind of nice at the end.
It's really cute. It's a really cute version of Cinderella.
Okay, I want to talk about how, actually, this is kind of a Beauty and the Beast story, more of a gender-bent version, and, maybe not as obvious. Cinderella is kind of seen as beastly by everyone else because, she's a servant and always dirty, and her transformation, rather than being a whole species change, is really more of a makeover.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And like Beauty and the Beast, this is a love story between two people of different social classes, which, in that time is kind of a big no-no.
Yeah.
And from different variations of the story that I've heard, at least from my end, the reason why commoners were allowed to go into the ball and such was because the prince was really picky and wouldn't choose a princess. And so they're like, okay, well, we're desperate now, so let's bring in the village girls.
Wow, so even the prince sort of exhibited a tiny bit of beastly mannerisms, particularly before he was transformed into the beast, of how, always so picky above it. I'm going by what we've seen in, Belle's Enchanted Christmas, of how the beast acted not just to his servants, but also the old maiden who offered the rose, of how cruel and mean he was. So even the Cinderella prince was picky. That's kind of interesting. Yeah.
Not to the extreme as the beast.
Well, yeah, obviously not to the extreme, but I say sort of beastly mannerisms that are a little more, drawn back in.
Well,
not as obvious.
Back then, princes were men. They didn't care about women. They only cared about hunting and shooting things and other manly activities.
Yeah, tell that to the hunter from Snow White. One of the few hunters who actually cared about a human being.
Yes.
Yeah, the thing about Grimm's story, I think, Cinderella, she seemed to take more charge of her situation. I mean, she kind of held help from a bunch of talking birds. But she makes a decision to go to the ball, and she runs away. But geez, the prince and the dad are just idiots. It's really the prince that, Cinderella, wasn't a bad person the same way. Well, actually, the Beast wasn't necessarily that bad a person in the original tale. But point is, the prince had to kind of, see past the servant exterior to really get that, this is the woman I love.
To look at the person underneath all the physical traits and
under the
stuff
soot.
like that. Under the soot, under the dirt, and under all the the tattered clothes and stuff like that.
And you may have noticed that Cinderella is probably the most adapted fairy tale there is. I mean, all the movies and books and TV specials we've seen just everywhere, which is why I wondered why Disney remade their own version. And but you've got all these other live action Cinderellas out there. What more can you do? And have you seen the 2015 live action remake Disney did?
Yes, I have seen that, and it's okay in my personal opinion. I liked the way they took the stepmother. Cinderella herself, I was kind of on the fence. It was I've seen better Cinderellas.
My favorite, my favorite part was Helena Bonham Carter as the fairy godmother, but
it's Helena Bonham Carter.
Yeah, but I think they didn't really do anything that hadn't been done by someone else before. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Yeah.
It was very much recycled material.
Yeah, it's sort of the mentality of if it ain't broke, don't fix it. But, ironically, that kind of didn't work in Disney's favor with their remake. I mean, it wasn't like I personally haven't seen it, but from what I hear, it wasn't the worst.
But it wasn't the best.
Yeah, it wasn't the best.
It could have been so much better. But for what it is, it's just okay.
Yeah.
I really think, my favorite version of Cinderella was actually not Disney, not the animated, not the live action, but the 1998 movie Ever After starring Drew Barrymore. Have you guys seen that?
I've seen that. I liked that movie. It was a really good version of it.
Yeah, because they, one thing, they took out the magical element of the fairy tale and kind of made it more realistic. There was no fairy godmother, well, at least a fairy, and we followed Danielle, who's being called Cinderella. She's, feisty, headstrong, intelligent, and she doesn't wait for others to save her. And, her relationship with the prince is a lot more developed. He kind of learns from her to, she convinces him that, you can be a better ruler and make things better. And they were kind of more equals. He does try to save her, and then finding out that she's saved already. I'm I was coming to help you. Well, I didn't need your help. Well, I still came because I cared.
It's like a sort of a conflict between independency and, at least from what I've noticed, independency and chivalry. Possibly?
Yeah, I could see it's definitely shows men trying to be courteous and stuff, but it also shows that women can be strong.
Yeah, it's not resorting to the tired old stereotypes that we know today and consistently mock.
Also, Angelica Houston as the stepmother was just, wow. Yeah, she's an amazing actress. And yeah, I think that one added more depth to, the stepmother was still a bad person, but, we saw in the beginning when the father dies and she's having the heart attack and the stepmother and little Danielle are freaking out and yet the father turns to little Danielle and goes, I love you, but doesn't say it to his new wife. And you could see in the look, she's like, but I'm your wife, and you're not going to tell me that you love me? So you could kind of understand why, she's always been jealous of Danielle.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Exactly. So I guess we're going around talking about our favorite variations of Cinderella at this point, since we've basically covered the whole story at this point.
Yeah, because obviously we can't cover every single version of Cinderella, so let's talk about the ones we love the most.
All right, I've got two favorites. One is it's not well known. It's an animated version called Ye Shen. It's basically set in China.
Cool.
Ye Shen has a stepmother and a stepsister, just one, and she has a friend who's a fish. And the stepmother and stepsister soon figures out that she has this friend, and so they catch the fish and they cook it and they eat it, and they give the bones to Ye Shen, and is like, we saved the best part for you. And the spirit of the
I've heard of this.
Yeah.
I've heard of the tale. Yeah.
Yeah, and then the spirits the fish is basically the fairy godmother of this point, and basically goes in to help Ye Shen find a husband at the festival. And it has a special soft space in my heart for that animation. The other variation that I just love, because it just gives so much backstory into the stepsisters, and plus it makes them, it gives all the characters a reason why they're acting this way. And that's Confessions of an Ugly Stepsister. It's for those who don't know, it's from the same person who wrote the book Wicked, and it came before Wicked, I think. And I just, this movie is just, it's so good. And like I said, it gives the reason why the stepsisters act the way they do, why the stepmother acts the way she does. And it's really good. And I found it when it just randomly aired on TV, and I just loved it ever since. And it has been one of my favorites.
I might actually have to check that out, because, ever since I was a kid and saw the first animated Disney Cinderella, I've always had this thing in the back of my mind saying, why do they act this way? There needs to be at least something behind why they're always being this cruel, because, as much as I love the animated Disney movie, which is my favorite, which I'll talk about in a bit, it's like, why?
What about the sequels? Yeah.
I'm sorry?
Well, what about the direct-to-video sequels for Disney, where they kind of added more to Anastasia's character, one of the stepsisters? And I think that's what I liked about the sequels the best.
When it comes to Cinderella 2, giving a little more development for Anastasia, that I can appreciate. While the movie in of itself, it's a direct-to DVD Disney sequel. You get what you get.
Yeah.
I do appreciate them having that little a thing for Anastasia. As far as Cinderella 3: A Twist in Time, it's actually been a long time since I've seen it in full. I would probably have to watch it again. But from what I remember, it was pretty fun. It took this... It's like I always have a thing, it's like the notion of what happens after Happily Ever After, it depends on the story, but I don't think it's necessary in certain cases. This, with Cinderella 3, it's something I didn't think I wanted to see, but it ended up being pretty darn fun. What if the stepmother was like, no, I am not having this anymore. I need to find some way to fix it so it can be my way again. Wahahaha. And yeah, from what I remember, it was actually not too bad. But yeah, as far...
It did a little more for... It did a little more for the prince as well as the stepsister.
Yeah, it did.
It actually gave him a personality, because that always bothered me about the original Disney thing, is that the prince was just so generic.
He was
even
pretty
Prince
bland.
Eric from Ariel had a little more of a personality than the prince from Cinderella.
Ironically, he did voice... Okay, it's funny you should mention that, because Prince Eric from Little Mermaid voiced the prince in Cinderella 3.
Oh, really?
Oh!
I did not know that.
Yes.
Oh my gosh, that's so cool.
Yes.
The more you know. But...
Yeah, actually there's a reason why, in a Disney Cinderella, and actually in Disney Snow White too, that the princes were so generic. Because Disney was not used to drawing handsome men.
Huh.
It's hard enough to draw a female human, but it's even harder to draw a male human without making him look goofy. They could spend a lot of time on those really short dwarfs or the goofy king and the Grand Duke scenes, but drawing guys and having to make them look totally handsome, it was a lot harder.
Huh.
So that's why that in their early movies with the handsome prince, they didn't spend a lot of time with them. And obviously by, Little Mermaid, they got more used to it. Actually, before that, Sleeping Beauty even had more screen time than the others.
Absolutely. He had more screen time.
Yeah, definitely.
Not much of a personality, but still it was definitely a step up compared to his predecessors.
Yeah, I definitely enjoyed watching the prince from Sleeping Beauty a lot more than Aurora.
Because, granted, the most chemistry I saw was between him and his horse.
So it was like Flynn Rider before Flynn Rider.
Yeah, exactly.
But
but that was just the point I wanted to make. Why Disney didn't really put much into their princes originally.
Okay, but going back to my favorite version of Cinderella, I will have to say the animated Disney version. It's the one I'm the most familiar with, and going back to how with connecting with Beauty and the Beast, a lot of people say it's like, oh, I love Belle. She's one of my favorite princesses. Well, I don't disagree with that. Belle is an amazing character through and through. Yeah. When it comes to Best Princess, in terms of what she had to go through to get to her happily ever after, I would actually have to side with Cinderella, because she went through the most abuse and torture than probably any other princess, because Aurora was kept in secrecy for about 16 years,
but she was still treated kindly.
Yeah, she was still treated kindly.
Yeah, she had three caring caregivers.
Yeah, she had caregivers. Belle, she had a normal life up until she met the Beast and had to
even though she was considered very odd and not of the norm.
Yeah, what.
And she had a loving father.
Yeah, she had a very loving family. Cinderella, she had to deal with all that abuse pretty much almost all her life, from either since birth or since her parents died. Or
depending on which variation.
Depending on which variation of the fairy tale it is. But she had to deal with that pretty much a majority of her life,
into
possibly even her childhood, even to her
early adulthood.
And I'm just like, you having to suck up to all that abuse that was handed to you? Just, wow. And at the end, I feel like her having that happily ever after and getting married to the prince while her stepmother and stepsisters got nothing, I thought that was very well deserved. Mm-hmm. She was very resourceful, especially when it came to trying to get herself out of that locked bedroom with, of course, the help of her animal friends and all that. But
a lot of mice in that movie.
It was let's be honest. It's like one of the pure definitions. This princess to me is the living embodiment of karma.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I remember, I've watched a lot of featurettes. Every time I get a Disney DVD, I'll watch all the featurettes. Mm-hmm. This movie in particular was very important to Walt Disney. Not only were they just recovering from, World War II, where they had to make a whole bunch of package films just to pay the bills, because half their artists had been drafted. Yeah,
and then, of course, I think the strike that was happening on at the same time, too.
But Cinderella was like their, it's a rags to riches story, which was pretty much Walt Disney's story. This guy just started from, just making a few simple cartoons and then went on to just build this whole animated empire. And, fun fact, also with the voice actress for Cinderella in that movie, Eileen Woods, she was originally just, recording the demos for her songwriting friends. And when Disney heard her singing the demos, he's like, okay, I want this girl for Cinderella.
Nice.
Yeah, so that was a bit of a Cinderella moment for her, too.
Nice.
And, also in a featurette, actually, this was more for when he was making Alice in Wonderland, which is it was the next movie. He's saying, there are three girls in my life. First, there's Snow White, who is waiting for her prince to come. And then there's Cinderella, who also dreams of romance, except what makes her different from Snow White is that she goes out and does something about it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And, Yeah, I think that is kind of the key difference between those two, whether you're looking at the original fairy tale or the movies. That, Cinderella does get help from her fairy godmother and, well, in Disney's case, her mice. And also in the Grimm's case, talking doves. But she does kind of have a bit more agency. Like, she wants to get out of there, she tries, but something's always in her way.
There's always some sort of hurdle she has to try and jump, but she is more than willing to jump over it to the best of her abilities.
Yeah, like in Grimm's case, picking lentils out of the fireplace, which was an impossible task to begin with, so she asked for help from the birds. Yeah, I still don't get that. I still don't get that part.
Don't get it either. But I also wanted to bring something up for Cinderella's case, because there have always been people, and I used to be one of these people that always be like, why doesn't she just leave? She is such a weak character. She is probably one of the weakest characters Disney has ever come up with. She's the stereotype of the prince, like, I need a strong man to save me. The thing is, at one point she actually does manage to stand up for herself. In the Disney version, when the stepsisters are making fun of her, going, oh, you want to go to the ball? Oh, could you please hold my broom while I dance with the prince?
Right.
And then she's
I remember that.
And then she goes, well, why not? Why can't I go? After all, it says all the women need to go. Every eligible woman has to attend.
Yes, exactly, yeah.
And let's remember,
so
this was the
this
was 1950, so standards for women were not the same as we have today. So let's keep that in mind.
Absolutely.
Yeah, true.
Yeah, and also with the thing of, like, why didn't she just leave? Her whole life has been at that estate. Everything she owns as either with her in the attic or has been taken away from her.
Her life's been sort of conditioned to stay that way.
Well, it's not that. It's if she did leave, she would have nothing and would probably not last very long on the street.
I remember what time the story took place. Well, it doesn't really specify in the Disney version, but, like the French version was written in the 17th century. The Grimm's version was written in the 19th century. Where would she have gone?
Exactly.
Yeah, that is true. Yeah, I can agree there.
And also another point to add on top of that, we've already established that Lady Tremaine, in the Disney version, especially, at least, the evil stepmother in other versions, is a manipulative character. And so, of course, she would warp Cinderella's ideas of, oh, you can't make it out there on your own. It's too dangerous for a young lady like you to make it out on your own. You should just stay here. And since you're going to be staying here, why don't you clean everything? Manipulation is a horrible thing and can do horrible things to the mind. And so it wouldn't surprise me if the stepmother had warped Cinderella into believing that she, of course, time period granted as well, that there wasn't much for her to go to if she did leave. But it definitely was another conditioning where she's like, you have no choice but to stay here.
Yeah, also,
does that make sense?
I think the movie Ever After, with Drew Barrymore, I think explained it the best, when she's having this whole confrontation with her stepmother, and like, I've done everything you've ever asked from me, and you've still denied me the only thing I've ever wanted. And what is that? What do you think? You're the only mother I've ever known. Even why this headstrong woman, in this movie would still stay in such an abusive situation. Like, she's lost her father, she's lost her mother. This evil stepmother is the only parental figure she has. Since she will cling to that one bit of love that she has in her life.
Yeah, in a sense, that after it's all said and done, that's what I mean when I say that she's been conditioned to believe that the life she's living is the only life for her because her stepmother was so manipulative and planting all these seeds in her head. It's like, there's nothing else out there for you. If you leave this place, you could literally die out there. And, all that stuff. So that, for clarification, that's what I mean when I say she's been conditioned to that this life that she's living is the life for her.
Yeah. And also, like, even if you look at more modern versions, I've sadly had a lot of friends who have been in abusive situations, whether with their family members or their significant other, which is very awful. But they seem to me like very capable and strong people. And of course, I think I asked a few times, like, why didn't you realize the situation before? Stupidly. But yeah, it's hard to just, let go when you think that this person loves you, and when they're really horrible to you, like, you just expect the love you think you deserve, and it's a hard thing to get out of. Like, you think if you're going to leave this person, then you're going to have nobody. So, yeah, we can't really keep blaming the victim for these situations.
Absolutely.
Oh, yeah, definitely.
Yeah, you guys are lucky, by the way.
Yeah. No, trust me. I know how lucky I am to find a guy like Will.
Yeah, I mean, I myself have never been in any sort of quote-unquote abusive situation and all that, but I have heard stories where, certain people that I would consider close friends or even family have gone through, and yeah, it is absolutely dreadful to hear that.
Yeah, that's why I think people should really learn from stories like Cinderella. I had good parents that, they never really, you do fight with your parents a lot, but never good parents will not manipulate you. They just told me, like, if ever somebody does something that you don't like, you have a right to say no, which is how I've always avoided that kind of situation. Like, every time a creepy guy asks me out, like, nope, no thank you.
Yep,
definitely.
There were a couple other versions I wanted to bring up that are some of my favorites. The Rodgers and Hammerstein's musical version, specifically the one with the Black Cinderella starring Brandy.
Oh, yeah. I think that was like
1997. Okay.
97. Yeah.
Yeah,
Once again,
I looked it up
having
earlier,
Bernadette Peters as the evil stepmother.
I specifically like that one, not just because of the diverse cast, but they put in a bit more dialogue than, because I'd seen the other adaptations of the Rodgers and Hammerstein musical, but this one put in a little more dialogue. Like, the prince and Cindy had this little meet cute at the beginning. They just, the prince is out in disguise and they just bump into each other. Yeah, which is really cute. And also Whitney Houston is the fairy godmother. Wow.
Of course, you can't go wrong.
Oh no! God bless Whitney Houston, you talented singer, you.
You were wonderful. Yeah. And another version that I liked it, and this is lesser known. I don't know if you've heard of the 1980s TV series Fairy Tale Theater.
Oh my God, I grew up on that. I grew up with the Snow White and the Hansel and Gretel.
Yeah, produced by Shelley Duvall. Yeah.
Yep, Shelley Duvall.
And, just had a huge handful of celebrity actors reenacting fairy tales. And a lot of them were really simple adaptations. I loved what they did with Cinderella. Like, it was like simple, but it was also pretty self-aware.
Yeah,
I think you actually showed me an episode of that once. I think when we first started dating.
I think I showed you the Frog Prince because that had
with
Robin Williams.
Yes, it was the Frog Prince you showed me because of Robin Williams. Yeah.
Oh, God rest his soul too. Oh my God. Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Okay. Anyway, their Cinderella, it had Jennifer Beals as Cinderella, Matthew Broderick as a prince. Oh God, he was so cute in the 80s. Just like
I will admit, in my early 20s, I had a huge thing for Matthew Broderick, and so I would watch this episode over and over again, just to be like, oh, Matthew.
So does that mean that you would also constantly binge Lion King just to hear his voice as older Simba?
No, actually, I did not. Thank you. I'd watch some of his other movies.
All right.
They just kind of made this little cute couple out of the Cinderella and the prince, and there was Jean Stapleton as the fairy godmother. It's like, honey, I'm your fairy godmother. Didn't you see me poof? Yes, that's what she said. Or Cinderella's like, when the stepsisters don't recognize her, like, oh, that's such a beautiful dress. Where'd you get it? Oh, it's a little something I poofed together. Poofed? I mean, put together.
Put.
Yeah, and they just make fun of the whole ridiculousness of some of the things. Like when they're about to turn the pumpkin into a coach, and she's like, wait a minute. Don't pumpkins have that gross stuff inside? Oh, yeah, seeds. Oh, you don't want giant seeds in your carriage. We should take the seeds out before we turn it into a carriage.
Yeah.
Oh, my.
Yeah.
And I also remember, this is another one of those variations where they have a ball not once, but they had it twice. And I loved this scene because the king was like, leave up those decorations. We'll save money on that.
Are you sure Fairy Tale Theater wasn't like some sort of offshoot of Saturday Night Live or something? Because that's what it's seeming like to me.
Sometimes, like, some of the funnier ones, I could probably see that.
Yeah.
But
Also,
there were definitely some, like, scary versions. Like, Rumpelstiltskin still to this day has me shook. And then Hansel and Gretel was, like, absolutely terrifying.
God, yeah. Those poor kids.
Yeah, which, by the way, if you want a good, strong female heroine where the girl saves the guy, Hansel and Gretel is the story you want to go with. She's the one who defeats the witch.
Yeah, she
Gretel
is,
defeats the witch, yeah. Okay, also in their Cinderella, like, this is like the biggest plot hole of why the prince doesn't even ask her name. Even in the versions where the ball is more than one night. You know, the king even says, you still don't know her name? What have you been calling her? Hey, you?
Yes. Oh my gosh. Honestly, that king in the Fairy Tale Theater version was on point. He definitely was, like you said, he was one of the more self-aware characters of making sure everything, like, he's like, what? Why don't you? What? No, what's wrong with you?
Yeah, along with the fairy godmother, it's like, don't go kicking any rocks in those glass shoes of yours.
Oh, yeah, definitely good sound advice there.
Yeah, and in the second night when she changes her up again and like, hey, what did you do with your glass slippers? Well, I was kicking some stones down the path. Oh, honey, you didn't. And then she just brings out the shoes. Gotcha. yeah, that's one of my favorites because it's just so simple and it's just so funny. Yeah.
And honestly, Fairy Tale Theater would probably be one of my favorite interpretations of the fairy godmother, where, like you said, she's self-aware. She's not too goofy like she is in the Disney version, and not too serious or anything like that, or not too generic. She had the right amount of pep and then a right amount of sass. Because in the end of the Fairy Tale Theater, she actually turns the stepsisters and the stepmother into rabbits. And she's like, I've been waiting to do that for a long time.
Oh.
And it's just like, are they gonna be okay? Oh, fine. They'll turn back into normal at midnight. And then the prince is like, midnight? That's why you... Not only handsome, but he's smart too.
Yeah, and also the prince and Cinderella interactions, you know, like, do you know anything about kissing? I'm almost certain it has something to do with the lips. That's just so cute.
That's another one of those, I feel like they actually, in the Fairy Tale Theater one, since we're on that one, I feel like out of a lot of the variations, aside from Ever After, that was one where the princes and Cinderella's relationship actually started to grow and they actually learned and talked more about one another.
Yeah, instead of just,
dancing,
looking at each other's eyes, and it's like instant marriage. And it's like, no, it don't work like that.
Nope.
Yeah, actually,
What's up?
Well, funny story. I've always liked the idea of, I don't fully believe in love at first sight, but I always like the idea of future married couples meeting at a dance or a ball or a party or something. Because that's how my grandparents met.
Aww.
Oh.
Yeah, they were at a party. My grandma was with a friend, and I think it was a friend's boyfriend introduced to friend's boyfriend's guy friend, and then they just grandma's like, oh, I'm not, he's kind of cute, I'm not so sure if he likes me, but then a few minutes later he asked her to dance, I just felt like I should ask you to dance, and
Aww,
yeah,
that's so cute.
The marriage lasted till he died a couple of years ago, but sometimes stuff out of a fairy tale will happen, but afterwards it's not going to be like a fairy tale.
Well, shut my mouth.
Yeah, every time Grandma and I watch Cinderella or Sleeping Beauty, with their whole love at first dance thing, she's like, oh, it's like me and your grandpa. It's like, okay, I'll get that to you, Grandma.
Well, yeah. Well, all right then. My point has been debunked.
not to say they like got married the next day, but just
Okay,
sometimes,
yeah, sure, fair enough. Yeah.
Like there will be those rare moments where you just instantly connect with somebody on a personal level.
In a sense, I think that's kind of like how, me and Katie started falling for each other. I mean, like, it wasn't necessarily like love at first sight or anything, but actually,
we interacted with each other online for about a year.
Online and through text messages while I was, out at work and stuff like that. Just getting to know each other as people first, like what your interests are, what do you like, what you don't like, what is your opinion on such and such, and blah blah blah. And you can clearly see how that's worked out.
Horribly.
But going back to fairy tale theater, I want to check out the Cinderella thing now for fairy tale theater.
I will find it for you.
Have they actually made has fairy tale theater actually done a thing with Beauty and the Beast?
They did do a thing with Beauty and the Beast.
Yeah,
that was with Susan Sarandon. Yeah, but they have like lots of different versions. They have the one I still laugh at is they have Carrie Fisher as Thumbelina.
Oh,
I love that one. Okay, and why do we keep going to actors who are dead? What is wrong with us?
I don't know. But
I don't know. We miss them too much.
We miss them.
I was thinking and talking about the fairy tale theater one. Actually, what they did with Beauty and the Beast was almost like an English version of the what was it in the 1940s? French Beauty and the Beast film.
Yeah.
Yeah, okay. When I had watched that for the first time in my college seminar class about Beauty and the Beast, I'm like, oh my god, this is this is what they did with fairy tale theater. Just a shorter version and in English.
Yep, exactly.
Yeah, even with the Beast's look, they pretty much just I mean, still pretty cool. I mean, Susan Sarandon, I just love her hair. Just
she's a goddess.
I'll definitely
She and
check that out
Angelica
then.
Houston. But don't worry, babe. We'll probably binge them sometime this week.
Probably, yeah. I shall soon be educated.
Yes, I will make sure he gets the best education.
Forgive me for living a very sheltered life when it comes to media like this.
Yeah. You also love like Puss in Boots and all that.
Yes, they had Puss in Boots.
Yeah,
I
Puss
think
in
it was
Boots was
Christopher Walken who was Puss.
Christopher Walken
I'm pretty
as...
sure it was Christopher Walken.
Okay, now I definitely need to see it.
I can't confirm that. I don't remember. He's wearing a catsuit. I can't tell.
You could tell by the speech. I'm looking this up now. Can you open your phone for me, please?
I can imagine like what his dialogue must have been. It's like,
now, so I can confirm it
have
officially.
to.
meow, I am Puss in Boots. I have come
Where is your safari?
to rescue you.
I just want to say now, Puss in Boots is actually a French tale. They just DreamWorks just made him all Zorro-like.
Yeah.
Of course, you have to have creative liberties on that and
Yeah, and actually having Zorro voice Puss in Boots, so yeah.
Oh yeah, I never would have been able to make the connection otherwise.
So yeah, any more points we want to make on Cinderella? Oh yeah, why? Another reason I think it's popular. It's it's a story where you're rooting for the underdog and.
Yeah.
Yeah, one of those shticks where it's like, classic underdog stories. So
Any more points I can think of, or like any other adaptations you guys want to bring up?
Not that I can think of at the top of my head.
Yeah, same.
My mom's favorite version was this movie, The Slipper and the Rose.
I was wrong. It wasn't Christopher Walken. I know he was in it though.
Who
it was
was it?
Ben Vereen who was Puss.
Ben Vereen, okay.
Yeah. Anyway, my mom's favorite version was The Slipper and the Rose. That was like another musical version. Had the Sherman Brothers doing the songs and.
Oh,
the Sherman Brothers who did a whole lot of Disney movies, including Winnie the Pooh and Jungle Book,
Mary Poppins, and all that.
And they actually didn't want to do that. Another Cinderella, like everybody's done Cinderella. Oh, but this time we're gonna do it from the prince's perspective. I mean, they still had, Cindy in there, but they did more with the prince, like showing, his pressures to be king or to choose a wife, and even a side story with his manservant who's like, you think you're the only guy in the world who can't choose, who can't be with the one he loves, because we all have our issues here, because he was in love with the lady of the court, but he was, the manservant was, a servant, so he couldn't really pursue her. And
Right.
and actually, the reaction when the prince does choose Cinderella for his bride is more realistic. The king's like, well, she's pretty, but she's not a princess. And they actually kind of hide her away for a bit. You gotta tell him that, give some excuse that, you don't really love him and he can't really do this. And he almost actually married another princess, but then the fairy godmother intervenes like, seriously? I gave you this dress and these shoes and you're just gonna back down from this?
All that for nothing?
Do I have to do everything for you?
The prince. Oh, sorry.
You're like, the prince is getting married. Oh, who's he marrying? Well, at this moment, the wrong girl. Now let's go. Yeah, that's my mom's favorite version.
I actually remember there was another version. It's a very, very short version of Cinderella. It's from the book Roald Dahl's Revolting Rhymes. And
yes. Have you seen the animated TV adaptation?
I have, I think, and it's been a while, but I still laugh at it. And I love it at the end is because the prince turns out to be a murderer and he's just chopping off her stepsister's heads.
Oh.
And
yeah.
Cindy just is like, I don't want a prince anymore. I just want a normal guy who's gonna love me. And then,
yeah, in the TV version that, the animated version, they actually combined all the revolting rhymes so that she ends up marrying Jack and the Beanstalk.
oh yeah, that's right.
Oh, wow. Oh.
But
You need to check out that whole special, because they do a whole lot of fun things there, like having Red Riding Hood and Snow White be best friends, aka maybe lesbians.
Maybe.
Probably
just
when I watch it, I'll be like, yeah, there's no maybe about that. Who knows?
They hold hands like crazy. And give each other flowers.
Yeah, they tried some of those same tactics, especially like, if I could just reference My Little Pony real quickly, they do that so often in the Equestria Girls special, especially Roller Coaster of Friendship between Applejack and Rarity. It is no longer subtle. It's like Hasbro, okay, yeah, no need to hide anymore. If you just want to blurt it out, teach the kids something, do it. We will not hold it against you.
But yeah, I think what Cinderella tries to do, and despite its criticisms, if you have a dream, just go for it.
Yeah.
Yeah, don't let anybody hold you back.
Agreed.
That's
That's a good message to send to people.
Yeah, going with the whole stigma, it's like, if you just wish upon a star, all your dreams are come true. Like, in a sense, Cinderella, it's like, sure.
She's the one who says, screw that notion, I'm getting my own dress and I'm going.
Yeah, and I know they definitely expanded on that with Disney's later films, like, Princess and the Frog and, stuff like that.
Speaking of which, with Princess and the Frog, that's actually going to be my next topic.
Ah.
Oh, all right.
Yeah, because, I realized, it's not only the month of love, but it's also Black History Month. So, let's talk about Disney's first African-American heroine.
Clever segue.
Yeah. Plus, I love that movie. And I'll also be talking about the Frog Prince a little bit more, because actually the origins of that story you'll find are very surprising. Oh, Grimm brothers, you are really messed up.
Oh,
yeah.
wow.
I read the original Grimm tale that was been translated into English, and I'm not to spoil the next podcast, but I'm like, really? That's how the prince comes from a frog to a human again?
Yeah,
really?
let's just say it was not a kiss, and you'll find out more in the next episode.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. So, any more points we want to give, or?
I think we've covered just about everything.
Yeah, I think
can be
so.
covered.
Pretty much when it comes to, how much Cinderella relates to Beauty and the Beast in its own sort of ways and stuff like that. But yeah, I think we pretty much covered a good majority of stuff. I can't think of anything else at the top of my head.
Yeah, same here.
Yeah, well, thank you guys for doing this. This is a lot of fun.
Absolutely, yeah.
Yeah, I feel like the collaborative podcasts are, well, not only longer, but they're a lot more fun because, it's not just me giving ideas, it's other people giving ideas, so...
Yeah.
There's a whole slew of different perspectives to pick our brains over, and
Exactly.
it's a lot of fun.
Yeah, and now I've done all the requested guests. If any of you do want to, request a guest, patrons of $35 a month or more can really pick a guest, and it will be guaranteed, within reason, like, unless it's a really big Hollywood actor that I have no contact with whatsoever, then you would be able to attend the recording. So yeah, if you do have any suggestions for future guests, I will take them into consideration, patron or not. If you want to become a patron, remember, green button in the right-hand corner of the screen, or follow the link in the description below. And remember, true beauty comes from within, and it is not based on how much dirt you have on your face. And really, if you do meet someone at a dance or a party, or just some night at the club, learn their name first. That should be the first piece of conversation that pops into your mind. Seriously.
Preach.
Yeah.
Yeah. And
Don't
also don't
rely
marry
on
someone.
shoe sizes.
Exactly. That's exactly what I was going to say.
Or the size of anything else. That can totally be taken different ways, but I'm sure you know what I mean.
As they say in the Princess Rap Battle by Whitney Houston, Cinderella versus
Yes, that's what I was
Houston.
thinking.
Not Whitney Houston. Whitney
Not
Avalon,
Whitney Houston.
sorry.
Whitney Avalon with
Yeah.
Sarah
The
Michelle
moral-
Gellar.
Yeah, the moral of our quarrel and why you've got you beat. It's what inside that matters, not the size of your feet.
There you go.
Sorry, Cindy. Belle has more development.
Yeah, I was about to say, it's like Whitney Houston rose from the dead and is deciding to do a rap career now?
Okay.
Their first names are Whitney. It's hard for me sometimes.
And then with an un. So, yeah. All right. So, bye-bye. Next time.
Bye.
See ya.